When I pulled into the parking lot that morning, I noticed everyone avoiding eye contact. The air felt different, stiff, tense. I didn't know yet that my whole life was about to fall apart. I had worked at my father's company for 7 years, managing logistics and operations. My older brother, Ryan, handled client accounts. Dad always said I had the mind for detail, while Ryan had the charm. But that day, as I entered the conference room, Dad's face wasn't the same. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold. "Emma," he said flatly, "we need to talk." Beside him, Ryan leaned back in his chair, a fake look of concern plastered on his face. My stomach tightened. On the screen behind them was a report, one I'd never seen before. Dad pointed at it. "Did you think we wouldn't notice the missing funds?" I froze. "What funds?" Ryan sighed dramatically. "Dad, maybe she didn't mean for it to look so bad." I stared at him. The room began to spin. Missing funds? Fraud? It didn't make sense. I'd been out late finishing quarterly orders just the night before. But Dad's voice cut through the silence. "You're suspended until we finish the investigation." And just like that, everything shattered. I sat in my car for over an hour, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the rain streaking down the windshield. I replayed every word in my head, trying to make sense of what had happened. Missing funds? I'd never touched company money. Every account I handled was logged, reviewed, approved. Ryan had to be behind this. He'd been acting strange for weeks. Secretive calls, sudden meetings, and that smug tone whenever Dad praised me. The next day, HR called. My access to company systems was revoked. My ID card didn't work. My email was disabled. Overnight, I became an outsider to the place I'd helped build. Mom tried to comfort me. "Your father just needs time, honey. Ryan said you were stressed. Maybe you made a mistake." A mistake. The word stung. She believed him too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my old backup drive, the one I used for reports. If Ryan really framed me, he'd have left something behind. I opened my last project folder, checking every spreadsheet, every invoice. And then, buried deep in a file named vendor_backup, I found it. An altered ledger. My initials forged beside fake transactions. I sat back, my hands trembling. Ryan wasn't just jealous, he'd planned this. I didn't go to Dad right away. If Ryan could fake financial reports, he could twist anything I said. I needed real proof, something even Dad couldn't ignore. I spent the next week gathering data from my old drives and personal archives. I traced the altered invoices back to dummy suppliers, companies that didn't exist. But the payments were real, sent to an account under a shell name. When I checked the registration, my blood ran cold. The owner's initials matched Ryan's middle and last name. He'd used Dad's trust to build his own exit plan. But I still had one problem. I couldn't access the internal company systems anymore. The audit trail I needed was hidden behind firewalls only Ryan could reach. So I called the one person who might still help me, Jake, a senior accountant who'd always been fair. He hesitated. "Emma, you know I can't get involved in this." "Jake, please," I whispered. "You know I'd never steal from my dad." He was quiet for a long time before he said, "Come by after hours. I'll leave the side door unlocked." That night, I drove there in the dark, my heart pounding. I was no longer defending myself. I was hunting the truth. The office was quiet, only the faint hum of the air conditioner breaking the silence. Jake met me near the storage room, his expression tense. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, handing me a flash drive. "Everything from the last quarter's audit logs is in here. Ryan's been deleting entries, covering his tracks." "Thank you," I whispered. I took the drive home and stayed up until dawn. Each log entry showed timestamps. When Ryan accessed my projects, when he uploaded corrections, and when he logged into accounts under my name. He'd used my old password, the one I'd saved on the shared device. My heart sank. He'd planned this for months, maybe longer. The next morning, I printed the files and went to Dad's office. He didn't even look at me when I walked in. "Dad," I said quietly, setting the papers down. "Before you judge me, please read this." He frowned but skimmed the pages. His eyes narrowed, scanning the transaction trail. When he looked up, his voice was colder than before. "Ryan told me you'd try this. that you'd make fake documents to blame him. I stared at him numb. Ryan had already poisoned him completely. I walked out that day knowing one thing: this wasn't about clearing my name anymore. It was about taking everything back. I moved out of my apartment 2 weeks later, using the last of my savings to rent a tiny place across town. Everyone at the company believed I was guilty. Even old friends stopped returning calls. Ryan's version of the story had spread fast. Emma stole from her own family. The humiliation cut deeper than the betrayal. But isolation gave me clarity. I started piecing together a plan, not for revenge, but for justice. If Ryan wanted Dad's empire so badly, I'd let him have it for now, because I'd build something he could never control. I contacted 2 former clients who'd left the company because of Ryan's arrogance. "Would you trust me if I started something new?" I asked. They didn't hesitate. "We'd follow you anywhere." Those words became my fire. I registered a new logistics firm under my own name. Small, discreet, but sharp. Every dollar I earned went into scaling it. And as months passed, I began to hear rumors. Dad's company was losing clients. Ryan's charm was cracking. He had what he wanted, but he was bleeding from the inside. And I wasn't done yet. I worked every day like I had a secret to protect. My new company was small at first. 2 desks, 1 rented conference room, and a stubborn hope. I called it Blue Ridge Logistics. I used my full name and put my face on the proposals I sent. People liked that. They wanted someone honest they could trust. Word traveled slowly at first. A former client agreed to a short-term contract. Another small business hired us for a week. Each payout felt like a stitch repairing a wound. I tracked Ryan's moves in the news and in whispers from old colleagues. He celebrated his new responsibilities loudly, as if noise could cover the fact he was out of his depth. I learned to sleep less. Nights were for planning, building connections, learning how to pitch investors, tightening contracts. I hired 2 reliable people. Mara, a quiet operations manager, and Tomas, a driver who knew every route like the back of his hand. They trusted me because I treated them fairly. Sometimes I drove by the old company building just to feel it. I wanted them to know I still existed. But I never shouted. I kept small, careful wins that added up. As Blue Ridge grew, so did my confidence. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rebuilding what had been taken, one honest day at a time. One rainy afternoon, Jake met me at a diner. He looked thinner, tired in a way that made me ache for him. "I can help more," he said quietly, sliding a paper across the table. It had numbers and notes in his cramped handwriting. I found a pattern in Ryan's transfers, small, frequent payments to that shell account. He's sloppy when he's in a rush. I held the paper like it was a map. "Did you find anything linking it to him directly?" I asked. He nodded. "There's an old mailing address for the shell company. It's a mailbox service, but there are records. Ryan used that same service when he set up the consultant he hired last spring." My pulse quickened. Every piece of the puzzle made sense now. "Why help me?" I asked. Jake shrugged. "Because Dad deserves the truth. Because you were always the one who stayed late fixing the messes he blamed on others." We decided to be careful. Jake would keep digging while I focused on growing Blue Ridge so I could show investors I was a real force. That night, I typed an email to a former investor who had been burned by Ryan's smooth promises. I didn't beg. I showed facts, client growth, solid contracts, and a plan. I pressed send, hands trembling. It felt like the first time I'd filed a real report not meant to destroy me, but to save me. The investor replied in less than 24 hours. He wanted to meet. When he walked into our tiny office, he looked around, then looked at me like he could see the work beneath the surface. "You have integrity," he said. "That matters." He offered a small seed investment with strict terms. I accepted. That money let me hire better software and a proper accountant. Meanwhile, Ryan's mistakes became louder. Clients complained about missed deadlines and double charges. He smiled on camera interviews, but emails leaked about failed shipments. The board wanted answers. I watched from the margins as the man who'd tried to bury me began to sink. I used the investors' trust to expand Blue Ridge into areas Dad's company had ignored. We offered transparent tracking and fair pricing. People noticed. Word of mouth brought more clients who wanted straightforward service without promises wrapped in charm. At night, when the office lights dimmed, I would think about how Ryan must feel. He had wanted the empire, the applause, the control. He had the title, but he didn't have the backbone to hold it. That made me steady. I kept pushing, not with anger, but with quiet patience. Every honest contract we fulfilled made my case stronger in ways a courtroom never could. Months of careful work paid off in small wins. Blue Ridge had a staff meeting where we celebrated our first major month of profit. Mara brought cupcakes. Tomas whistled like it was the 4th of July. I watched them laugh and felt a warmth I hadn't known in a long time. It was real, not forced. Then Jake called late one night. His voice was low and urgent. Emma, I found something else. Ryan's been funneling money through a vendor, whose invoices match the dates of his personal trips. My breath caught. Do you have proof? I can get it. But be careful. People are watching. I met Jake at the office and we pored over his findings. There it was, travel invoices, hotel receipts tied to the Shell account, and a trail of small deposits that formed a pattern only a patient eye could see. The more we found, the more obvious it became that Ryan had used company funds to fund a lifestyle he kept hidden. We started making a plan, not to attack publicly, but to secure the truth. We copied every file, backed it up to multiple drives, and labeled folders with dates and names. It felt like stacking bricks for a wall that would finally protect me. I slept that night with a thin hope in my chest. For the first time since the boardroom, I felt like I might win. The next step was dangerous. We needed someone inside the board who would listen. I reached out to Mr. Caldwell, an older board member who had always been reserved and fair. He agreed to meet me quietly at his office. I walked in with a folder of documents and Jake by my side. My hands were steady. Caldwell read in silence. When he finished, his face was unreadable. This is damning, he said. If this is true, the company's future is at risk. I told him about Ryan's pattern and how our clients were leaving. I explained Blue Ridge's growth and how investors now expected honesty. Caldwell asked for time to review everything. If this proves out, he said, you deserve a place at the table, Emma. Hearing that name felt strange and right. We left with a plan. Caldwell would quietly start an internal audit and watch Ryan. Jake and I kept building our case. I felt both fear and a fierce calm. Ryan's walls were strong, but they had cracks. I had patience, proof, and people who cared about the company more than charm. The next moves would have to be careful, but I finally felt like I had leverage in the game. A week later, I got a message from Caldwell, keep your distance for now. Things are moving. Those 4 words carried both warning and hope. I did as he said. I stayed quiet, focused on Blue Ridge, and waited. Through a contact at the supplier network, I learned Ryan was under pressure. The company had lost 2 big contracts. Employees whispered about chaos behind closed doors. Dad hadn't said a word to me since my suspension, but he didn't look proud when I saw him at a family gathering. He looked tired older. Mom tried to keep peace as always. Ryan's doing his best, she said. Is he? I asked quietly. Or is he just pretending? She frowned. Don't start, Emma. Your father can't take more stress. I let it go. Fighting her wouldn't change anything. Later that night, I got a text from Jake. He's panicking. Caldwell asked for bank authorizations. Ryan's trying to shift accounts again. I realized then that Ryan wasn't as untouchable as he thought. He'd spent years living in the comfort of Dad's trust. Now that the walls were closing in, he was acting like a trapped animal. I smiled for the first time in months. The trap I'd set with truth and patience was finally working. I woke up early every morning that week, nerves sparking like electricity. Caldwell was reviewing the data with the internal audit team. If Ryan tried to cover his tracks again, he'd need time. That meant he'd make mistakes, and I'd be ready to catch them. Jake called late one night. Emma, I found a transfer he made yesterday. He moved $20,000 into the same Shell account, but this time, he forgot to hide the IP address. It matches his office computer. I exhaled slowly. We've got him. Jake chuckled softly. Yeah, we do. But be careful. He knows someone's watching. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I started organizing every file into a final report, something I could hand to Caldwell if he needed absolute proof. The next morning, while I was printing the last batch, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Emma. Ryan's voice came through, smooth but cold. You've been busy, huh? Meeting people behind my back? Making up stories. I froze. I'd stop while you can, he said quietly. Dad will never forgive you if you drag this out. The line went dead. For a moment, fear pressed against my ribs. But it didn't last long. Because I realized something. Ryan wouldn't be calling if he wasn't scared. Ryan's call changed everything. It meant he knew Caldwell was looking into him. It also meant he felt threatened enough to confront me directly. But that was fine. I had more than feelings now. I had evidence and allies. I decided to record everything moving forward. Every call, every message, every document I sent or received. I wasn't going to give him another opening. 2 days later, Caldwell requested a formal meeting at the company's headquarters. Ryan would be present, along with the finance department and Dad. My stomach twisted at the thought of facing them all again. When I entered the boardroom, the air felt thick. Ryan smiled, all charm and false warmth. Emma, he said like we were old friends. Nice of you to join us. Caldwell began. We've discovered irregularities in several accounts. Emma has provided data suggesting misuse of funds. We need clarification. Ryan laughed softly. Come on. You really think I'd steal from my own father? Caldwell didn't answer. He turned to the projector, where Jake's report appeared on screen. Every transfer, every timestamp, every trace leading to Ryan's ID. The room went silent. Dad stared at the screen, his lips parting slowly. Ryan, what is this? Ryan's smile faltered. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. The meeting dragged on for hours. Ryan tried every excuse, blaming software errors, saying the system had been hacked, even hinting that I might have set him up. But every claim crumbled. Caldwell stayed calm, presenting evidence piece by piece. Jake's meticulous notes, the matching IP addresses, and the linked shell accounts painted a picture too detailed to deny. Dad sat still, his hands folded tightly. When it was over, he didn't look at me or Ryan. He just said, "Leave me alone. Both of you." Ryan stormed out first, slamming the door behind him. I followed quietly. Outside in the hallway, he turned on me. You think this fixes everything? You'll never get the company back. I don't want the company, I said softly. I want the truth. And now everyone knows it. He glared at me, jaw tight, then walked away. That night, I sat in my small apartment and cried, not because I'd won, but because of how much it had cost. My family was broken, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. But deep down, I also felt something else, relief. The storm was finally turning. I didn't realize yet that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of Ryan's real downfall. The company launched a full audit. Caldwell took temporary control while Dad stepped back for health reasons. It was clear he needed time to process everything. Meanwhile, Ryan disappeared. No calls, no emails. His office sat empty. Rumors spread fast. People whispered about lawsuits, frozen accounts, unpaid debts. But I stayed quiet. Blue Ridge needed me more than gossip did. One afternoon, I got a message from Caldwell, "Your father wants to see you." When I walked into his house, he was sitting in the den, a half-empty glass of whiskey beside him. He looked older than I remembered. "I read everything," he said. "I can't believe what Ryan did, and that I didn't see it." Tears burned behind my eyes. "You trusted him, Dad." "I would have too." He sighed. "You were always the one who earned things. Ryan, he just took them." He looked at me for a long moment before speaking again. "If you'll come back, I want you to help rebuild what's left. As a partner." I didn't answer right away. I thought of my new company, my team, the people who had believed in me when no one else did. "I'll help," I said finally. "But only if we rebuild it the right way this time." Returning to the old office felt strange, like walking through a ghost of my past. The walls were the same, but the energy had shifted. People greeted me differently now, warmer, cautious, but curious. Caldwell officially announced the new structure. Dad would act as advisor, while I'd lead operations during restructuring. I didn't want to gloat, but when I walked past Ryan's old glass office, empty and cleared out, a quiet sense of justice settled inside me. Still, I knew better than to celebrate too early. People like Ryan didn't vanish. They plotted. One evening, Jake called. "You should see this," he said, forwarding me a link. It was a blog post titled, "Emma Lawson's Revenge: How She Destroyed Her Own Family." My heart dropped. The post twisted everything, accusing me of faking evidence, of scheming to steal the company. It even leaked old personal photos. "Ryan," I whispered. Jake's tone darkened. "He's trying to turn the story against you." I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, shaking but calm. Ryan still didn't understand. He was fighting the old version of me, the quiet, naive sister who wouldn't fight back. This time, I'd win differently. Not with anger, but with truth, louder, public, undeniable truth. The smear campaign grew fast. Ryan's friends fed online tabloids fake insider stories. He painted himself as the victim, a loyal son framed by his jealous sister. At first, it hurt. Seeing strangers call me cold, calculating, a liar. Mom even called, crying, saying she didn't know what to believe anymore. But I refused to let him own the narrative again. I reached out to Caldwell and the PR team. We decided to release the real audit results, along with signed statements from suppliers Ryan had cheated. The report went live the next morning. The internet flipped. Within hours, hashtags changed from hashtag #EmmaExposed to hashtag Ryan Lawson Scandal. News outlets picked it up. Journalists dug deeper, and suddenly, the truth had teeth. Jake texted, "He's trending," and not in the way he hoped. Still, I felt no joy. Just a hollow ache. Revenge wasn't clean. It didn't wash away the years of betrayal. It only revealed how deep they ran. That night, Dad called. His voice was quiet. "You did the right thing," he said. "Ryan made his choices. Now he has to face them." I hung up, staring at the ceiling. I didn't feel like a winner. I just felt free. 2 weeks later, Ryan resurfaced. He requested a private meeting at a downtown cafe. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I arrived, he was already there, unshaven, eyes hollow. The arrogance that once defined him was gone. "You happy now?" he muttered as I sat down. "No," I said honestly. "This isn't what I wanted." He laughed bitterly. "You always wanted this. To make me pay." I met his gaze. "No, Ryan. I wanted you to stop. To stop lying. To stop taking everything that wasn't yours." He leaned forward, voice cracking. "Dad hates me. Everyone does. I have nothing left." For a moment, I saw not the man who'd destroyed me, but the broken boy who'd always been desperate for approval. "I didn't make you lose anything," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." He looked away, shoulders trembling. "You think you're better than me?" I shook my head. "No. Just smarter about when to stop fighting." When I stood to leave, he didn't call after me. For the first time, Ryan Lawson had nothing left to say. Life moved on slowly after that. Blue Ridge started landing new contracts, and Dad began consulting for both companies. Proud but quieter now. He seemed gentler, maybe humbled by everything that had happened. Mom still struggled to accept it all, but she came around, especially after seeing the headlines fade. She hugged me one evening and whispered, "I just want my children back." I didn't have the heart to tell her that wasn't possible anymore. Ryan's case went to court after the audit uncovered more stolen funds. I didn't testify against him. Caldwell handled that. I stayed away, choosing peace over vengeance. Jake visited often, helping with strategy. One night, he said, "You know, I've never seen someone fight this quietly before." I smiled faintly. "Quiet doesn't mean weak." He nodded. "No. It means you let the truth make the noise." That stuck with me. When the verdict came, guilty on multiple counts, I didn't feel triumph. Just closure. The past had finally stopped breathing down my neck. And in the quiet that followed, I realized revenge hadn't ruined me. It had revealed me. Months passed, and life began to feel normal again. I split my time between Blue Ridge and Dad's company, rebuilding trust and rewriting old systems that had once hidden corruption. One day, Dad joined me in the conference room. "I've decided to retire for good," he said, smiling softly. "You've earned this, Emma." All of it. I felt tears rise but swallowed them. Thank you, Dad. He handed me a small box, a set of keys. Your office now. When he left, I sat alone for a long moment. The same walls that once watched me fall now echoed with quiet redemption. I looked out the window, remembering the day I'd been escorted out with security watching. That version of me had felt powerless, betrayed, erased. But the woman sitting here now, she had built everything back from ashes. Not through manipulation, but through integrity. As I turned off the lights that evening, I whispered to myself, this isn't revenge. This is reclaiming. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. The months that followed were quieter than I expected. The noise of scandal had died down, leaving behind a strange calm I wasn't used to. People at work treated me differently, not like a victim anymore, but like someone who had walked through fire and come out steady. I learned to enjoy small things again. Coffee in the morning sunlight, the hum of the office printer, laughter echoing from the break room. It felt like rebuilding a home after a storm, piece by piece. Every so often Mom mentioned Ryan. He was serving his sentence in a minimum security facility, taking business ethics classes as part of rehabilitation. She said he wrote her letters. I told her she could share them with me someday. At night, I'd sit at my desk, looking at the framed photo of us as kids, Ryan's arms slung around me, both of us grinning at the camera. It hurt to remember that once, we were inseparable. I didn't hate him anymore. I just accepted what he'd become. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about excusing what he did. It was about freeing myself from the weight of remembering. And for the first time, I truly felt light. One morning, I received a letter. The handwriting was unmistakably Ryan's, sharp, slanted, impatient. My stomach twisted as I opened it. He wrote, I've had a lot of time to think. You were right. I ruined everything I touched, and I blamed you because you were what I couldn't be, honest. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say I'm sorry. I hope one day you can build something better than what Dad gave us. Maybe you already have. I read it 3 times, each word heavier than the last. I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled faintly and folded it back into the envelope. For the first time, his words weren't weapons. They were human. I placed the letter in my drawer, right beside the old photo of us. That night, I wrote him back. Just a few lines. Thank you for saying that. I hope you find your own peace too. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Sometimes, closure didn't come with fireworks. It came in small, quiet exchanges that healed what shouting never could. A year passed before I realized I hadn't thought about revenge in months. My life had filled with new things. Purpose, calm, and unexpected joy. Blue Ridge had merged with Dad's company, forming a strong, transparent network. Our new motto was simple. We build trust before profit. I insisted on that line being printed on every brochure. One afternoon, as I left the office, Jake walked beside me, smiling. You ever think about what started all this? He asked. I laughed softly. Every day. But not with anger anymore. He nodded. You turned a betrayal into a blueprint. That's rare. I looked up at the fading sky. I just refused to let it define me. We stood in silence for a moment, the city buzzing around us. I realized that revenge wasn't about making others lose. It was about reclaiming what they tried to take, my dignity, my peace, my story. And somewhere deep down, I knew Ryan's downfall wasn't my triumph. It was his lesson. My triumph was surviving it without becoming him. On a crisp autumn morning, Dad invited me to lunch at his favorite diner. Over coffee, he looked at me proudly. You know, your mother says you've changed. Have I? I asked, smiling. He nodded. You're stronger now. But softer too. I think that's rare. We talked for hours, about life, family, and what legacy really meant. For the first time, Dad admitted he had been too hard on us. I thought pressure made diamonds, he said. But it can also break people. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. We're still here. That's what matters. He smiled, eyes glistening. I'm glad you came back, Emma. You saved more than the company. You saved me from my own pride. As I left the diner, wind brushing against my hair, I realized how far I'd come. I didn't need to prove myself anymore. I'd already done it by living differently. Revenge had been the spark, but redemption, that was the fire that kept me going. And it burned quietly, endlessly, inside me. A year later, I stood in the company's new lobby. The glass doors reflected a life rebuilt, one earned, not given. Employees moved with purpose, laughter filling the space. In the corner, a plaque read, Lawson Group, founded on family, restored by truth. I traced the words with my fingers, smiling. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I'm out. Starting over. Thank you for not giving up on me entirely. Ryan. I paused, staring at the screen. Then I typed back. Take care of yourself. Be better this time. No anger. No bitterness. Just peace. Outside, the sunlight hit the building just right, catching on the glass and scattering warmth across the sidewalk. For years, I'd lived in my brother's shadow, buried under betrayal and blame. But standing there, I finally understood. Revenge hadn't given me back what I lost. It had cleared the path so I could build something new. I walked away with my head high, whispering, this time, everything's mine. And the world, at last, felt still.